All right, about a week ago, as we record, we played the Community Shield, the kind of unofficial opening of the Premier League season. It was the second time that I've seen this fixture, and the second time I've seen Arsenal play Manchester City in this fixture, and the second time I've seen Arsenal beat Manchester City in this fixture. The commentator said apparently Arsenal has beaten Manchester City every time we've played them in the Community Shield. So
I mean, it was the two times you're referencing, and then also like once in the 70s or something. Like, it's not that often.
They didn't add that detail. Yeah,
it was like 3 for 3, which is pretty good. But
right. And at the time when they were saying that, it was 2 for 2. So yeah,
right. Yeah. So it's the Community Shield in pretty much every other country would refer to this as a Super Cup, pitting the winner of the league against the winner of the Challenge Trophy. And so in this case, the Manchester City is the FA Cup champions. Arsenal, of course, as the league champions facing off. Typically played in Wembley, but not this year. We were in lovely Cardiff, Wales.
Why?
Well, because there was a concert at Wembley the past weekend. The Canadian musician The Weeknd was performing at Wembley that weekend.
Canadians mess everything up. Yeah.
It's kind of odd that as Wembley you would book that concert. Like, it's not like they don't know when the Community Shield is going to take place. But these things happen. So, and I will say, so it is currently called the Principality Stadium because of sponsorship, but is more commonly known as the Millennium Stadium, which, if you go back far enough, as I do, while Wembley was being renovated into the modern version where it exists now, for a number of years, the cup competition, the cup finals were played in Wembley. The FA Cup, played in Cardiff, at the Millennium Stadium. The Community Shield, the FA Cup, the League Cup, those were played over in Wales for a few seasons. So this isn't actually this is not the first time this sort of thing has happened. It's just kind of weird that it happened, because of what would seem to be a fairly avoidable thing, as opposed to the complete reconstruction of the stadium as it was.
Right. Exactly. Do you think that contributed to why it didn't sell out and why we saw empty rows in the stadium, because it was a further travel?
Well, no, because Arsenal bought really, the reason the game wasn't a sellout is because Manchester City didn't sell their allotment. Arsenal sold far more than their ticket allotment. It was definitely a predominantly Arsenal crowd. I think in a lot of ways it reflects here's the politically correct way to say this. I think it reflects a lot of the positive feelings that Arsenal fans have about the club, where it is and where we are coming to the season, versus, I think, the less optimistic phase that you're going to see City fans in, with Pep gone, a certain players gone. There's a sense that they aren't quite what they've been the last few years, and so it lessens the enthusiasm. The snarkier point to point out is that if you just actually counted the number of fans each club has, in general, Arsenal is a much larger fan base than City, and so that they travel much better in this circumstance.
Right. So the first thing I noticed, aside from the strange venue, was we had a pretty rotated lineup. I mean, just kind of rattling off the names of who was on the bench was really when I noticed how rotated our lineup was, because overall, I recognized all the names. It wasn't like we were playing obscure players, but just looking at the bench, Saka, Rice, Eza, Gyökeres, Marino, Zubamendi, Dauman, Kepa, and Nkapie. This is like an all-star bench. And we don't have slouches on the starting lineup, but some of our biggest heavy hitters were on the bench. Do you know why that was? Was it just that this match doesn't ultimately matter and they're coming off the World Cup or something? Or
well, the World Cup is a big part of it. I mean, in a sense, that's kind of weird. In most other countries that have these Super Cup games, it matters a lot. They put a lot of stock into these kind of games. In England, it feels like just in some ways it's kind of a glorified friendly. Now, to be fair, big managers don't talk about it that way. Mikel Arteta did not talk about it. There was a trophy. This was a final. We were going to play to win this game. But look at the names on the bench there: Saka, Rice, both went deep in the tournament with England, and in the case of Saka, nursing an injury. Rice, dealing with a certain level of fatigue. Marino and Zubimendi both went deep into their tournaments with Spain. Eza, too, was obviously with England. So you've got a lot of guys who are still kind of coming back from the World Cup. They've only been in practice at that point. I think it'll have been training for about a week. So they're not fully up to the full fitness levels. Just looking at some of the others, with Gyökeres, we talked about this. Havertz, I think, is the preferred striker for big games. So not surprised to see Gyökeres on the bench. Same, I think, in the case of Dauman. And, obviously we could look at a player like Madueke, who played with England, but I think he's ahead of Dauman. Dauman's still kind of young. It's not, you're going to be careful about the situations you use him in. And then with Hincapié, he's the backup left back. The starting left back is Ricardo Calafiori, who, by the way, pretty much justified that position in less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, really. Yeah. How common is it? As an Arsenal fan, I see a fair number of goals scored by defenders. And we have Gabriel, who scores from headers pretty routinely off of corner kicks. Like, am I spoiled? Is that uncommon, or do you see that a lot? Like, because the fact that we're talking about him as scoring the first goal of the match so early, like that was great. That's not usually what you count on a defender to do.
We should point out that he scored the goal to open last season. He scored the goal against Manchester United. So 2 years in a row,
I forgot that.
Wow. Well, so typically, you're right. Defenders generally don't score. It's right in their name. That's not what they're supposed to do. And typically, when you see defenders scoring goals, it is more of a Gabriel type, where they come up on set pieces, they use their head, they create opportunities, scrambles in the box. What makes Calafiori more interesting and much more of a modern defender, especially a modern fullback, is the way we see him cutting inside and creating those opportunities and running into those offensive channels. Now, he obviously has a lot of freedom to roam in the system that Arsenal runs. Like, it's not as if he's cutting in from the wing like we see Ben White do from occasion. Calafiori is running a channel like he's the number 9. That is such a wild. He really just sort of randomly appears at various places around the field, and he's just really good at finding those spaces, and that's what he did there. So just and kudos to Miles Lewis-Skelly, whose name we haven't talked about. He was another one transfer rumors are around, and he just kind of put that one to bed right away. He's not having any of that.
We're seeing him in midfield where he belongs.
Yeah. And I think too, as you talk about this lineup, it feels rotated, but a lot of that I think is just World Cup fatigue related. I think this was as strong a lineup as I would have expected given the circumstances, and it's a pretty strong lineup as we saw.
Yeah, and looking through the names, Saka, Rice, Eza played for England, Gyökeres played for Sweden, Marino, Zubimendi played for Spain, and then you have Dauman, Kepa, and Hincapié did play for Ecuador. But and Dauman and Kepa, okay, fine. They you would expect them to be on the bench.
Right.
So,
Right, yeah. It's the names like Saka and Rice that you kind of jump out at you, but remember the circumstances there, and them in particular with Saka and his injuries, and Rice with his what we believe to be fatigue. Like it's once you start to, it's one of those, once you unpack it a little bit, you go, oh yeah, of course that's what that would be.
Right. Yeah. One question that occurred to me. So once, I forget if it was after the first or the second yellow card handed out, I was just wondering, because this is like a one-off competition, how does yellow card accumulation work in the Community Shield? Like, at what point does it become a match suspension for players? Like, does it factor in any other competition that they play in? Or is it like the next time they go to the Community Shield, if they get a second yellow, then they're suspended for the following Community Shield? That may never happen.
No, there's no accumulation because, as you said, there's only one game. Like, the point of accumulation is to penalize persistent fouling across a tournament. Either and you can call a season is essentially just an extended version of a tournament. What you would see, though, what would carry over would be suspensions, because we've talked about this, like with the FA Cup, because it's all under the umbrella of the Football Association. If you picked up I'm not sure this is definitely true, but I know it works this way with the cups. It wouldn't surprise me. If you picked up a red card in the Community Shield, then you could very well find yourself suspended for the first game of the Premier League season, or rather, at least the next game you played in a competition under the auspices of the FA. But in terms of counting yellow cards, that's only going to happen in each individual competition separately, and that's a suspension that's generally would be filled for that competition specifically. And really, you're only going to worry about that in the league and the Champions League.
Right. And I guess actually, if you got a yellow card like in the last game of the Premier League season before your team won, or if they'd already won the FA Cup, I guess that suspension could end up being served during the Community Shield match, probably.
No, so those kind of suspensions are wiped out at the end of the tournament because the accumulations are just wiped out. So, it is kind of like getting a free hit, basically.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So this, there isn't that much to talk about with this match. I mean, for one thing, the early goal really set the tone. Like you said, Calafiori scored in like the 25th second of the match. It was crazy. It was one of those things where like you better be settled in like at the whistle, or else you miss something if you're like grabbing your drink and you haven't sat down yet. But that set the tone for the whole thing. I mean, it was a good showing for us. I mean, did you have any reason to suspect otherwise from the preseason?
I mean, it's always easy to overrate the preseason. And to be fair, from the bits I saw and certainly the reports I saw, it didn't seem like we played well or looked particularly well. But of course, the goal is not to play well in the preseason. The goal is to be ready to play well in the season.
Right.
And whatever they were doing was clearly working. They were clearly ready for this game. Was I a little nervous going in? Yeah, because games against Manchester City are usually kind of cagey and there's a little odd thing. But that early goal just set the tone. Mm-hmm. Havertz scores, and then Havertz scores again in the 28th minute, and it's 2-0. And the game wasn't over then, but then of course, when Odegaard just dummies Donnarumma, it's so embarrassing. And he makes it 3-0. Like, the game's over. It's over. We were, and that's the kind of thing too. I know it feels retroactive, but just like, I think City will get better. I think they'll find themselves. I do think Enzo Maresca is a solid manager, and that's not just because he looks like Pep. I mean, it's kind of weird, right? Like, we've talked about this before. It's weird.
We did. And it was funny for me. I didn't even remember that Pep wasn't the manager anymore, despite having seen him throughout the whole, seeing Maresca, throughout the whole first half. It wasn't until it was like in the second half, I was like, oh, wait, that's not Pep. That's Enzo Maresca. Like, he picked like a virtual doppelganger for Pep.
It's weird. But anyway, I think a lot of ways what the game sort of says, the performance sort of says, because in some ways it's hard to really analyze because we were just playing at a different level than they were, which is kind of fun to say when you're talking about Manchester City. Like, we were ready for the season. Like, we're ready. And I think City's going to need some time to kind of pull themselves together. They still got talent. That's it. I don't think they're doomed. Remember last year Liverpool beat Crystal Palace to win the Shield, and that didn't work out for Liverpool in the long run. Right. Again, I think we're in a different place than where Liverpool was this time last year. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun to think about how much better we are than them. Certainly to prove it on the field, especially when you consider like our last two competitive matches against them. That game in the league that we lost up in Manchester, and then of course the League Cup final. So it's nice to plant one on them and kind of walk away. Like, it's hard to walk away from that with any conclusion other than we're just a lot better than they are right now. I think they'll be good, but I think we're different.
Before we leave this match, one last question. I'm sure everybody is curious for your take. What do you think of Saka's cornrows? Thumbs up or thumbs down?
I feel like we've seen this before. Like, I feel like there was this coming out of a summer competition. Maybe it was the last Euros where he came back and had them, and
So maybe it's a summer style for him, and then eventually they come out.
Maybe. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't care for them, but that's because change confuses and frightens me. It's his hair. He wants to do it. Whatever. Listen, he came on the field. He was dangerous the moment he stepped on the field. He's a guy. I've always been a fan. He's one of my favorites. Whatever he wants to do with his hair, if he's going to play like that this season, sign me up.